What's going on, YouTube? Tom here, and hopefully this weather holds enough for me to do this video. Anyway, I wanted to make a video talking about mods once again, and that is cold air intake. I made a video about truth behind modding a vehicle, and basically I said don't do it. Now, I myself have not even listened to my own advice. So, let's talk about cold air intake, because that's probably one of the first things people do, and in some cases that's the only thing people do. So here I have a pair of 2.7 Tacomas. Why a Tacoma? Because that was actually the only thing I could get two of. Because yes, my dad basically is the 2 Tacoma guy. So on the right over here is a stock 2.7 Tacoma, which is my dad's. And over here on the left is a modified 2.7 Tacoma, which is mine. This truck has a K&N 63 series cold air intake on it. Now, first of all, let's talk about the stock truck. As you can see here, you have an air box, your MAF sensor, which is pretty close to the air box, which then comes around and goes in through a resonator before going in through the throttle body. Let's come over here to the cold air intake version, which is the K&N series, and it goes through a conical filter as opposed to a flat filter. Comes in through the intake tube. The MAF sensor is now over here, a little bit away from the filter, then no resonator in through the throttle body. So that's of course one of the major differences, is you now have a conical filter, a slightly straighter intake tube, and no resonator. Now first let's take a look here at the stock intake tube. Classic Toyota, it's very easy to service. Gotta undo these latches here, and this comes open. Now, it's a little tricky with one hand, but there we go. You see here we have a flat rectangular filter. Now here you have your charcoal filter. So you have two layers of filters here. Put this back. What that does is it allows proper levels of filtration. You don't get particulate into your engine, a lot of dust and such. Now, as you can see, that's the area here. When we come back over to the conical filter, it's actually a little bit bigger of that area. As you can see, the conical filter has a bigger area, meaning a little bit more air comes in. And of course, it still comes in through the fender, which is over here, like it would on a stock Tacoma. But of course now you don't have two layers of filters. Now obviously if you are worried about the dust, most good cold air intakes have an option for a pre-filter, which is basically just a filter that goes over this. Does effectively the same thing as the secondary filter does on the stock truck. And of course then we look at the intake tubes. Now we're going to come back to this one. Once again, comes out of the air box, makes about a 45-degree turn through some, so this little, I guess whatever you want to call this, it's corrugated so it'll flex with the engine, and another 45-degree turn before going into the resonator. And of course, if we look at the K&N one, it's a straight shot to the throttle body, and that allows it to be a little bit less restrictive, because now you don't have the turns and you don't have that little bit of corrugation. And that's a great thing, because now it just goes straighter in, it's less restriction. If anybody's ever taken a fluid dynamics type of course will know what I'm talking about. You want to remove the surface tension, and if you do look on the inside of this, I can't really show you right now, but it is smoother on the inside than what that would be. And then of course the biggest one, which is probably your biggest single source of restriction in a stock intake, is you have a resonator. Now what this does is the air goes inside here and just bounces all around, and it quiets it down. Now that allows, of course, the air to not make noise before it goes into the throttle body, and that's why this truck doesn't make a whole lot of noise. I've driven this truck on the channel before, and really all you heard in that video was tire noise, versus when I drive this truck, no resonator, makes a boatload of noise from just that intake. And so that's of course the major differences and why this adds power. Now let's talk for a minute about the power. K&N claims this will add 7 horsepower to a 2.7 Tacoma. Without putting this truck on a dyno, I can't verify if that's true or not. I would love to, would have loved to, but face it, that's expensive. Now, how to get a good cold air intake? First of all, you should look for ones with conical filters. That's honestly the majority of them. And you should look for one, ideally, with no resonator. If you want to go quieter, you can. Some of them bolt up to your resonator. That, of course, is an option. Now, ideally, that would be quieter, but you're not going to get as much power. Now, another one people like to talk about is filters. Now, I'm running a K&N oiled filter. It is a little bit dirty. Ideally, some people will say don't go for oiled, go for oilless. Usually a dry filter. Now, dry filters have the advantage of you don't have to re-oil it, and therefore there's basically no risk of over-oiling and clogging up the MAF sensor. Some people like that, some people like me. I just know if you do this right, you don't have to worry about it. K&N even offers on certain vehicles a dry filter model. That's always up for debate. I'll let people debate that more than me, because like I said, if you do an oiled filter right, it's not that big of a concern. Whereas we come over to this truck, and again, it has the paper filter. Now, I've seen people argue over the effectiveness of intakes, and especially in the 2.7 Tacoma community. This is a bigger argument now, not necessarily for every vehicle, but some people have said take out that secondary charcoal filter, and then some people they claim, and I don't know where you're supposed to get this, but they claim that you can get a straighter elbow for just this part of the intake. I have yet to find them, but that's what some people claim. I apologize for any wind noise. It's a windy day today. Now, obviously, that's one thing to do. And another one people like to argue about is intakes are useless because they all either have had this problem or know a guy. They've had a problem with their MAF sensor. Like I just mentioned with the oiled filters, sometimes you can over-oil it and it will clog your MAF sensor. Another one I saw was actually, and this is again 2.7 Tacoma related, was the guy had the intake and he put the filter on too close to the filter, and then the truck ran really rich and with a check engine light. And basically this guy didn't have a scan tool, but as it was discovered by the owner of the company that made his intake, the problem was that it was too close and the truck was defaulting to a MAF problem because it wasn't getting enough airflow over it. Noticeably, that's why K&N, instead of moving over here to this where is on stock truck, it moves it over, and that's now some people will debate that there's a reason for why it was in that location. I trust K&N engineers on why they moved it, but again, that's up for debate. Now, I hope this all helped you if you actually are going to go to a cold air intake setup on which ones to pick. I got this one here for about $320. And the big problem, though, is a lot of people put them on, then say it doesn't really improve the power. Because the problem is, because this MAF is in a different location, and because now there's a little bit more air, you're really not going to experience much power. And I've heard it said before from some people, and I actually agree with this, you have to tune a vehicle for a new air intake. The solution that I came up with, we're going to come inside the truck here while I get it out. Now, I determined that the unit that I wanted to use was from Underdog Racing Development, because that's a known Toyota tuner. As soon as I undo the bubble wrap, this will hopefully be going on within the next few months. Not sure yet, just because. But here it is. This is a MAF calibrator, which is plug and play into your spark coil and then your MAF sensor. The idea with that is it accounts for the error from the K&N intake. But there's some error this is producing that will help alleviate. That was an additional $250, and it comes with a map pre-installed for the fuel, but it can be user tuned. And of course, if you run another additional setup, like if I were to go to exhaust, I'd have to retune it, or if I were going to go to another air intake, which I probably won't, I like this one, you'd have to retune it. And of course, That runs into money because you have to get a scan tool. So realistically, twice what you spend, basically the same price in the intake again for tuning. You could of course then get a tuning chip or programmer or something like that. That was the solution I had because this was a Tacoma. It's basically all you can get. URD, like I said, if you're in the Toyota market, they're pretty much the best tuner for Toyota. So that's what I will recommend. You should ideally tune an intake if you're ever gonna do one. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed this video on how a cold air intake works, the truth behind how they get their power, and also what you should look for in buying one, and what else you should do. Anyway, if you have any questions or comments, let me know in the comment section below. If you like this video, go ahead and leave a thumbs up. If you're stopping in for the first time, please subscribe, help me grow this channel. Check me out on Instagram, taco_tom_. Link will be in the description. I'm going to put a link to URD's website for the calibrator if you're in the Tacoma market, one of my Tacoma subscribers. Anyway, take care, have a good day.